Thank you all for being here. Before we launch into like what we're about and my dear co-partner Elizabeth is going to share a little bit about why this is important to us. Michelle, will you tell us about you, like just 30 seconds or less about you, where you are in the world, and why is this conversation important to you? Why is this topic important to you?
Yes, I work with Megan Chaffin at Lucas Solutions, and part of my job is of hiring people and company morale, that sort of thing. So I'm just curious. I think it's a very interesting time right now, and it's hard to find people. And I'm just curious to learn more because it's so different from what it has been pre-COVID, I guess, in terms of people looking for work, not wanting to work, etc.
Thank you. I love Megan. Thank you.
Yeah, she's great.
She was on our call, I think, at the beginning. So thanks for being here. Linda, what about you?
Hi, my name is Linda. I'm based in Montreal, Canada, and I'm part of a event tech company called SwapCard. So we're 200 employees all over the world. We're facing the same issues when it comes to hiring. So it's not American, it's very like all over the world. So same thing as Michelle, just curiosity, knowing more about what's happening. And I recently joined the people's team at SwapCard. So I'm reading about this and Netflix and book and other stuff. So I just want to, intake all the knowledge as much as possible.
That's awesome. And so, I mean, this is a huge topic. So please feel free to have time with me afterwards. Like you can sign up for a half hour with me when we're done, both of you. Because it's a huge thing. And this is my work is around culture. It's around team building. It's around leadership. It's around genius, wholeness. So there's a lot around that too. So thank you for sharing. So you're tech, is that correct, Linda? And Michelle, you're finance. So we've kind of got the head types, which is awesome. Kind of where you're from. Okay, perfect. Okay, yeah, Elizabeth, you want to jump in?
Yeah, perfect. So something that we've really been kind of focusing on right now is a very startling statistic from the Harvard Business Review. They are talking about how the Great Resignation is real. It's happening. We all know it. We're all dealing with it. We're all struggling with it. The U.S. Department of Labor reports that during the months of April, May, and June of this year alone, a total of 11.5 million people quit their jobs. Wow. And that those numbers are going to rise over the next 6 months.
And that was a year post-COVID. And you still have that kind of number quitting their jobs.
Yeah. And, we kind of think, maybe part of that is people got so comfortable and used to just being at home and realizing like, I don't have to go to work. I can just, there's the group that did unemployment, they sat at home and did nothing. And then there's the group that,
and we're going to go, we'll go into like all the whys later, but go ahead and read your thing, honey. Oh, there's Amelia. Okay, perfect. Okay. You want to read? Okay.
I already read it. You can go. I have to admit people.
Oh, we let Amelia in. Okay. So I thought you were going to share a little bit about our background and what we're up to.
Just reading your bio. So a little bit about Deborah. Deborah's genius is
Amelia.
Clear vision. Hey, Amelia. For CEOs and their teams, making that vision a reality with decades of C-level executive and team coaching. Deborah challenges leaders by inviting them to create a collaborative, vibrant, responsible, and joy-filled culture, which fosters highly desirable results. Her practice is shared in a diverse range of industries: high tech, wealth management, engineering, healthcare, marketing, and more.
Yay. So hi, Amelia. Amelia, do you want to share briefly while you're in where you're at and why this is of concern to you, the topic we're discussing today? Linda and Michelle did share.
Oh, great. So yeah, sorry I'm late. I thought I had signed
That's okay.
up
No worries
for this, and I hadn't, but here I am. So so Amelia Strobel, I'm with Mars Pet Care, which you can see in the background. Our vision is to make a better world for pets. And basically where I am on the journey and why this is important, two or three reasons. One is from a pet care perspective and from a Mars Inc. perspective, the Great Resignation is starting to show itself in some respects across our divisions. as well as different functions. So everywhere from sales and manufacturing all the way up to global, marketing and research and development, et cetera. So that's one piece of it. The second is a curiosity, because I'm double-hatted within our organization on foresight. And the Great Resignation is a nice signal for us on the changing landscape of work, the hybrid, et cetera. And then the third is from a personal perspective. I've been on a journey in the last 2 years with Deborah and some other professional businesswomen on coming to what is my genius and understanding how work can play a role in that. So again, great to be here. Nice to see some from familiar faces and some new faces. So thanks, Deborah.
Thank you. Alyssa, would you like to share where you are and why this is important to you, this conversation?
Sure. My name is Elisa Reinfort.
Lisa,
I am currently working for a nonprofit. We are a childcare early education agency that covers 28 counties across southern Indiana. We have obviously workforce shortage across every industry, but particularly childcare is facing a huge crisis right now. So that, just kind of gleaning additional information around that to kind of build additional supports for our childcare providers to help garner possible additional retention strategies. But then also for myself, like Amelia, recently going through Working Genius and really trying to focus more of my work, being able to really work more in my geniuses, to be able to bring that joy back after we've all been through pandemic and have faced a lot of that burnout of working in those geniuses that bring us zero joy.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So I love, guys, do you notice we're all women here? Is that okay to say that?
This is our first all women webinar.
Yes, okay. I love it. Okay.
Yeah.
It's all for a good reason. Okay. Carry on.
All right. So we're going to dive right in, everybody. Deborah, I want you to touch on something. How, in your experience, how do you believe we got here as a society? Why is this important to you that we talk about this?
Yeah. So a few of you resonate with genius. And it's not been like, boom, this just happened. It's been our journey. And I believe it's been since we were little. It's been our culture since we were little, how we went to school. We see that children these days are actually the ones that are now in school are suffering even more. The suicide rate is the highest it's ever been among 12 to 32-year-olds, right? So what is happening is not just in the work world, it's our belief system. And so looking at personally, what are we believing? Since we went to school, we haven't really thought about what options do I have? We are just told what to do. And we do those things and we move up to whatever it is, first grade, second grade, graduating, going to college, going to a corporation. What's the same thing? Do what we're told pretty much, right? And so over those years, we fortunately, the Great Resignation, I wanted to look at how is it for us, because it's calling us to who are we called to be and what are we here to do? And I love this opportunity. And how can we get curious as our journey, and as leaders, how do we take responsibility for noticing ourselves and noticing our people? If we have people reporting to us, what really lights them up? What is their genius? Because we've lacked engagement for many, many years before the pandemic, right? We've been reporting this for years. Almost 50% of people aren't engaged or even higher, and we're losing revenue just because people are showing up just to get a check. So it's time to turn. It's time for us to have fun discovering who we're called to be and create a different space for our culture. Curiosity and fun.
Yay. Thank you, Deborah. Okay, so this is a question for the group. What do you all feel is the way out? What are some solutions in your personal experience? Give us a little bit, like 30 seconds each, if you guys could just jump in. Any of your thoughts?
Yeah, and I'll limit it just for time wise. I'll put the timer on if you decide, just so everyone can share if anyone wants to. I'll set it for 30. Perfect. Okay, guys, who wants to go first?
You're talking about the way out of, as employers, to be able to keep employees. I would say flexibility is key. I don't think you can go from 9 to 5 to COVID back to 9 to 5. And I don't know what that new 9 to 5 looks like, but I think there's got to be flexibility there.
Okay.
And I echo Michelle. We do a lot looking at younger generations and work patterns, workforce, and they really do want that flexibility of coming into work, when they work, and how that really all encompasses with their lifestyle.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I mean, I
Okay.
agree with what has been said. So it's really like about reevaluating company's culture and flexibility. Same thing. I mean, we were forced to go home, and now to say like now it's time to go back to the office. It's not taking into consideration how people feel about it. I mean, some people are scared to travel or even go out of their home. So it's really about becoming a company that's human first, and then like the results will show. I don't think I don't know for any of the other companies, but in our companies the numbers were great with people working from home. So it didn't, people worked even if they were home. It wasn't a problem about working. So
the flexibility then created more productivity. Very interesting. So Deborah, what would your response? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to build on that because one of the things that I think Mars did, which was smart, was they actually solicited input from all of the associates. They used McKinsey, Future of Work, as kind of a baseline pre-read. And then each one of us separated into our functional or business teams and talked about what we wanted the future of work to look like. And so based on all of that input, Mars decided to have a hybrid system. And it varies like how many days of the week you're in the office, et cetera, by team. So it really went down to the lowest level. And as an associate, that felt good to me, and like the company was listening. So that would be another build, the flexibility piece of it.
So I love that you said listen. That's one of the biggest things, is that people are speaking with their feet. They're either coming towards you or they're leaving. So that's a big reason why people are not going to join, because they want to know that leaders, business owners, CEOs are curious people and they're willing to learn and grow. And so I've been reading that if a culture is not invested first and foremost on personal development, that people are not going to be interested in joining. They want to know, what are you going to do to make this different in the culture? Or how is it going to be different? Which is even more important than, where am I going to work? Am I going to work on a screen or in an office? More important is, how am I going to be showing up? Who's going to be on the other side? Is it going to be a bully, or is it going to be someone who's going to listen to me and I feel valued? And is this a corporation that has compassion and courage and authenticity? Or is it everyone put on a mask to show up because it's not acceptable to be me? So that's what I've been reading, even in these uncertain times. To hire a talented person, that's the first thing I look at. Are you a company that's willing to learn and grow? And the head of the corporation is going to be the first to step in to do that. Because that's, in my work, I work with CEOs, C-suite. If they aren't willing to do their work and grow as a leader, it's not going to work. So number one is that. And number two, highly looking at what's all the learning we can get. Right? Not just where am I working from, but how can we really assess the culture that we have now? No blame or shame, but where is our growth? How might we get that understanding from the people that are staying? What do they want besides just where they work from? What's most important to them? And how do we make a collective win here, a win-win? Because typically organizations are about win-lose. The leader is going to tell you what to do, just like we went to school, and when they want it done. It's not a discussion. So opening up to communication, how do we really communicate across the board around everything? Because we all have creative minds and desires and passions inside of us, and we all want to contribute. It's not like we want to walk away from work and be like, yeah, I did a half-ass job. Excuse me. Everyone wants to do the best and they want to be seen for that. But they want to, the way they want to contribute is what lights them up. And so for an organization to start asking those very simple questions of, what do you love doing? Where do you see yourself? Whether it's here in this organization or not, how can I support your development? How can I support your growth? And if an organization is known to be that, I actually know a coach, a young person who is in a company where that's a large corporation, you would know that they ask her all the time. They ask her, what path do you want to go on? Whether you stay here or not, how can we support you? So I would just say, how can we support each other? And then also when we're making agreements, this is part of my work, and Amelia knows this, is instead of demanding someone does something to fix a goal or to meet a goal, is can we have a conversation around how do we create a win-win? If we want to get to this goal, whatever it is, how do we create a win for you and a win for me? Just simple things that we don't do. Yeah. So thank you all for that.
Leading that into our culture conversation, let's touch on this briefly, Deborah. Let's talk about what it is, how we define it, and why it's important, how we can apply it to what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So culture is collectively, each of us, how we show up, whether we know it or not. Usually we show up unconsciously. And when we show up unconsciously, 96 to 98% of the time, we're on autopilot. And our autopilot has what has worked with us so far. What have we achieved so far? Where have we been successful? And yet we're motivated usually by fear, because that's what our ego drives. Our ego drives us into fear. And when we are unaware, we are reactive. So we're reactive to each other and we're not open to hearing each other. So I'm saying we got to hear each other, but yeah, we're coming in as reactive people, and it's no blame or shame. That's just the way our brain is wired. It's wired for unconscious bias. So the way our mind works, it wants us to be safe. So it's already thinking, something could go wrong, or you're wrong, or I'm right, but that's not who we are. So to become emotionally intelligent, body intelligent, and to use all three intelligences, mind, body, and heart, is the most important thing. And around that, listening to ourselves and starting to understand when we're just on autopilot, and how can I go beyond that, where I'm defensive and I'm right and you're wrong, because that's typically what happens in organizations. When there's a strong culture of right, wrong, which is most companies, you can feel the toxicity. You walk into it and you're like, oh, yuck. So culture is it's a sense, it's an energy, it's the way leadership leads. They're responsible first and foremost. We all are responsible, but I want to say it's either what's allowed or what's driven. And so collectively create that. And so if we want to have a curious learning culture, we all need to be responsible around how can I learn from this? How can I show up differently? What's my learning here that I got a result I didn't want, instead of blaming myself or blaming someone else? How do we get so curious about how I'm showing up and model that, and invite our teams to get curious? Wow, we didn't want this result. How can we learn from that? What can we learn from that? So-and-so is late, or that this is not how we asked, but what do we normally do? We blame someone. So that I'm just giving a very specifics, but how do we shift from a blame shame culture to actually a psychologically safe culture, right? And that's a whole other topic, because our mind is not typically a safe culture. It's a safety culture. And safety is looking for right or wrong. And that's a blame or shame culture, not a psychologically safe culture.
Absolutely. Everything that's happening right now, I mean, it's all so unexpected, but along the same vein, it's kind of inevitable that we've gotten to this point. How do we turn this around? How do we move forward? How do we experience what's going on as an opportunity, a positive, instead of a threat? Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that, Deborah?
Well, I think for leaders, it is for them to meet with each person and ask how they're doing, first and foremost, as a human. Someone mentioned this here. we're humans first. How are you doing? What have you suffered? Because we've all suffered. We've all had a loss, right? We've had a loss of some sort, whether we've been sick, someone else has been sick, or we've just been fearful. We've lost that joy, that sense of, I think, Alicia, you said that, like we've lost that sense of joy because fear doesn't allow joy, right? So could we just encourage our leaders to check in, have an open door policy. And I mean, really have an open door policy saying, I'm here from 2 to 4 p.m. on Fridays, making up a story, and opening the door to say, I want you to sign up and I want to hear how you're doing. And we don't give answers as leaders. We say, thank you. Thank you. Because there's always a truth. It might not all be true what someone's saying or feeling, or whatever, but can we just hear them and just say, thank you. And what's my learning around that?
Yeah. I want to circle back. Linda and Amelia touched on this earlier in our kind of brief discussion of how the pandemic really did change everything, primarily affecting people's sense of belonging and inclusion. You know, we were at the world stop. We were forced to be at home, stay at home, don't leave your house, don't go outside, don't associate with people, you know, don't spend holidays together. You know, that was pretty damaging, I think, for a lot of people, mentally, physically, emotionally. So how can we, let's have a kind of a group discussion on, you know, the mental health, burnout, flexibility, productivity. That was a great point raised earlier, the social interaction, kind of how that's all working together. But I feel like sometimes maybe fighting each other. I don't know. It's a very complex situation. So what does everyone think? What do we feel about that?
I agree. It is very complex. Working from home, as wonderful as it can be, is very isolating at the same time. And I always talk about how you can stay within the four walls of your house and convince yourself you're the only person left on earth. Like, so we need to find the balance between working from home, not going back to constant meetings, but still having human interaction somehow, even if it's just by Zoom.
Definitely. Oh,
that's the 30-second. Who wants to share for 30 seconds?
Who wants to go?
Who wants to go?
I mean, we're already 200 from all over the world. So we've used like opportunities to create online events because we're an event tech company. So it was based by like time zones, and we will do just team building online. If you want to look on online, there's a lot of companies that work with you to create those team building exercise and fun exercise. And actually, I got to learn a lot of my colleagues that way. And we also partnered up with a company called Do Not. It's like a donut, but it's a tech company that uses Slack and matches me with one colleague every week, so that we do a one-on-one and we just get to know each other. And the only issue is if somebody is based in Dubai and I'm here in Montreal, sometimes it's hard to find it, you know, the time. But for North America, I mostly met my colleagues that way, and it was just a pause, check-in, and it's encouraged by the company. So I mean, there's a way I feel that people want to meet, and that's why they created a role for me called travel manager, events and travel manager. So we're gonna try to do like regional team buildings, but face to face, if they are comfortable. Again, we have to keep the human first. So yeah,
beautiful. Thank you.
Perfect.
Anyone else want to share?
Yeah, so from a Mars perspective, we've also used tools like Linda mentioned to help us with both team building and also running meetings that used to be face-to-face that now have to be remote. The other thing that we did, at least when I first started with my team, is to do a once around when we start one of our team meetings, just to do a check-in to see how everybody is, where they're starting from. So some people might be starting from a great place because they've had a good week, or they're coming out from the weekend, and other people might be a little bit lower. And so that's a way for us to check in. And then the third thing that we've been doing is basically trying to find clever ways, similar to what Linda was saying, but clever ways to get people together. So one of our team members who is in charge of engagement for our team, she actually started sending out postcards for us to scratch off basically. And the person's name that you had to set up a 15-minute meeting with them. You couldn't talk about work. It was all about like you would have done if you were going to go get coffee at the coffee station or water over the water cooler, just to again, try and build those relationships from a remote perspective.
I love that. So I love that because there's a bit of play in this, right? And so psychology shows, right, that when we were young and we were playing, we had fun and we created all kinds of things. And coming to the work world is part of our culture, is that we've lost that. Right. And so it's an opportunity. I love that, to bring back curiosity, play, because we're going to create way more if we come from that space. So that's lovely. And I wanted to say, someone said meetings. Michelle, I don't know if you said meetings. That was one of the biggest gripes I heard before COVID, when we were meeting in person. The executive teams would be like, oh my gosh, I have meetings all day long. And like, they're like, nothing gets done. It's the same thing over and over and over again. Right. And does anyone, that could probably still happen. Right. So my work is around how to have meaningful meetings personally and with each other, but also how do we really own what's happening and how do we make movement forward from a conscious space versus a blame or shame space, which changes the meetings drastically, besides a check-in, which I always do too. I love that you do that, Amelia, doing a check-in, but how do we have a meaningful meeting? And for each of you, I'm sure you have meetings, but what do you want to bring to the meeting ahead of time? Choose, how do I want to show up? What do I want to get out of this meeting? And how am I responsible for making this a meaningful meeting? Because many times what I found is when you're sitting with maybe the CEO or the head, they're like, oh, well, they're gonna like just tell us what we need to do. And we don't even think, we don't prepare of like, how do I want to show up in this meeting? How do I want to make a difference? And you all are difference makers. My version of you all is that you are unique, made like no one else in all of history. And it's not an accident. You're here right now going through this time in life, this time that we're all going through. You have purpose, and to know that is life-changing, culture changing, leadership changing, instead of just doing I got to go to work to get the work done. My want for you is to start to take responsibility for, how do I want to show up for my life and my work? How do I want to be with myself? How do I want to grow? It doesn't matter what other people are deciding. How do I want to be? Taking radical responsibility is the first decision. Anyone else want to say anything? I know I jumped in after Amelia said that. Alicia, do you have anything to say? Am I saying your name correctly?
It's just Lisa with an A in front. Elisa.
Okay, thank you.
I was actually on a call earlier this morning talking about meetings, but it was brilliant. The speaker presented, and right off the bat, he asked everybody, if you were weather right now, like how are you feeling right now? So, it was really interesting to think that, some people come in sunny and some people are, partly cloudy. So, if we had that on the outside, it would totally change how we interact with one another and how we would approach somebody. We would, a little bit more careful than, just everybody's sunny all the time or everybody's at gloom and doom. So it was just really insightful for me as I do my team meetings to think about how are we currently right now, but then afterwards, think that other pulse check too, to say, how are we leaving as well?
Yeah, exactly. What is the goal? Many times we don't think about what is the real goal of our meeting. We just go in and got tasks, but overall, how do we want to leave from this meeting? What is our collective goal? And how are we going to create that together? How are we going to create that together beyond just getting the task done? How do we want to support each other? Who might need support if someone's got a doom and gloom, and maybe there is something, right? Who does want support right now? And maybe you just take a moment, a pause, because we don't know what's going on in someone's life. We don't know what loss they're experiencing. We don't know the stress they're feeling, but just to pause and ask could change everything for them. Thank you. Elizabeth, did you have questions?
So we're done with the question portion.
Okay.
It flew by today. Girls are great at Yay. So we're at the point where we're talking about application tools. So Deborah, what are some quick takeaways that we can discuss? We have about 5 to 7 minutes to talk about it. What are some things you can mention?
Yeah. So the first one you heard me say is radical responsibility.
Yep.
Radical responsibility is to know, what am I thinking? What am I believing? Checking in with yourself, because typically, again, we're just reactive. Notice, what am I thinking? And when I'm having that thinking, what am I feeling? Because our thoughts bring our emotions, and there's no right or wrong, or you don't have to show up a certain ways. If I notice that I'm sad, feel your sadness, but then also ask, what's inside of me? Because sadness doesn't come out from outside of us. Fear doesn't come from outside of us. Anger doesn't come. It comes from our beliefs. And we can be the change agent, guys. We can change the world by how we show up. So first is like, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? And am I willing to feel my feelings all the way through? So science shows, this is from Harvard, science shows that our feelings only last 90 seconds at most. But at work, not allowed to have our feelings there, right? Or we've been raised that way, however it is, women aren't supposed to be angry at work, but the thing is, can I walk away and take a few deep breaths, and can I just allow the feeling to pass through me? And then I'm clear-minded. When we store our emotions, we aren't clear-minded, and we're making reactive decisions. And then guess what? We're not going to get the result we want, because we're already in a threatened state. And when we're at threat, we make small decisions. And the third thing is, I know Amelia knows this, is breathing. If you don't have a breathing practice, please get one. It will change your life. It actually, learning to breathe changes your neurosympathetic system. When we are anxious, stressed, our muscles do this. Whoop! They lock down, and our lungs are trapped, literally, and we aren't able to fully oxygenate our body. And then we're not, again, thinking clearly. So I always say, just take 3 belly breaths, really deep and slow, all the way in and all the way out. That is something that you can bring yourself to presence, because your breath always takes care of you. We don't have to tell it, breathe. Your lungs are always there. So coming back to your breath brings you to presence, which gets you out of the future and the past, because that's where our brain's normally looking. Future, when we're in the future, what happens, guys, when we're looking at the future? How do we respond typically? What do you notice? Does anyone want to say what they notice? You're all muted, I think, except for Michelle. Michelle, how do you respond when you are looking to the future? What do you notice about yourself?
Feel optimistic, like relaxed, whereas sometimes in the moment it's that tension in the jaw more often than that need to breathe.
Okay, so normally when we're looking to the future, we get afraid and anxious because the brain doesn't know. You must be a 7 on the Enneagram, but we'll talk about that later. Amelia. So when we're looking to the future, the brain wants to know what's going to happen. It wants to figure it out. It wants to have the answer, but we can't know because it's in the future. So then we get anxious. And then what happens when we're living in the past and our mind goes to the past? What do you notice? What happens to you when you're in the past?
Regret, sadness.
Yeah.
Sadness. Why did I do this?
Or like, if you weren't happy with an outcome, you think about, oh my gosh, the could have, would have, should have of the situation, right?
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Nostalgia. You missed something, like, oh, I want to miss something. Do it again.
And we hold on to those too. So our work is to get present. And again, 96 to 98% of the time, we're not present. So learning a breathing practice brings you back to presence. It calms you, it gets you clear-minded, and to make a space from that decision is very different, because then we're actually able to hear other people too when we're calm, right? And part of being on a team and building a culture is, can I hear the other person? Can I hear the other person? How important is that? That we don't have to solve answers. They say 98% of the time, if a person is heard, they're good. So I would highly recommend that. And then my biggest toss for you all is, when you notice you're triggered, which we all are, guys, is normal. We all get triggered. After you take your deep breath, ask yourself, the thought that you're having that's causing this trigger, how could the opposite of my thought be just as true or even truer than the thought I automatically had? Because automatically that thought's going to be usually a defense one. So as soon as you flip it and say, wait a minute, could the opposite be true? You're getting into curiosity, which is my commitment. Radical responsibility, second commitment is, can I be a curious learning person? It brings you into curiosity if I ask, how could the opposite be just as true or truer? It calms you down, and guess what? It gives you tons of options, tons of possibilities versus, oh, there's got to be just one right answer. Oh no, and then everyone's fighting for the one right answer. So how can I get into curiosity? How can I invite other people to curiosity? Can we take a few deep breaths? Can we wonder, how could the opposite be true? So everyone's panicking about the great resignation, right? But guys, so we're looking for people. How is this the opportunity to become the leader you most want to become, no matter what your title is? How are you going to be the leader of your life and how you want to show up, no matter whether you're at home or you're in the car or you're in an office or you have no one that's reporting to you or you have kids or it's just you? How do you want to live your life? How do you want to show up for you? Because how you decide to show up is going to show up wherever you are. Right? You can't flip, oh, I'm here at work or here, this is my life. No, how you show up everywhere, regardless, is how you want to become, who you want to become. So remember, who do I want to become? And what am I here to do? Genius, get to your genius. And that's part of my work too. I just want to toss two things. One, before you leave, if you are interested or your leader is interested in having a culture assessment, a team assessment, that's my forte. Get in touch with me. Let's have a 30-minute discovery call around that. And then the other thing is I'm offering, which is going to continue running no matter where you are in the world. If you want to fly in, my little Montreal person or wherever you are in the world, December 3rd through the 5th, I'm doing a deep dive on getting to discovering your life's purpose, your genius, and who are you called to be. And I want to share that all over the world because I want people to more than anything, because I almost died being the winner and the achiever. And I know that there's more than winning and achieving and getting things done. I want everyone to live their purpose and their calling. So that's what I would toss to you guys. So please, and before we hang up, if you all want to be connected to each other, if you're open to that, we can get your emails crossed. If you want to be supportive around each other as well, we could connect you with that. Raise your hand if you would be open to that. So we don't want to connect you if you're not one. Okay.
Everybody. Okay.
All right.
Great.
Any last questions, thoughts before we hang up for today? And just thank you for being here.
It was very insightful. Thank you for doing it. Some good food for thought.
Yeah.
Back
Thank you.
to the office.
Yeah. And you're just down the street from me. So Amelia and Michelle are both in Nashville where I'm at. I don't know if I said that's where I'm at. So it's kind of fun that they're both in Nashville. Thank you. Yeah. I'd love to hear more.
Hey.
Anyone else want to share before we say goodbye for now?
Just thanks, Deborah, for pulling this together and for pulling the ladies and us all together. It's nice to be in an all-female group, actually.
Yeah, that does just
coming
happen.
from almost an all-male
Refreshing.
presentation.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, right. And working with CEOs, guess what? They're mostly in the C-suite. It's very few women, right? There's usually one in the group. So I love that we're together here. PS2, if we're going to send out this webinar, so if you want to send this webinar, if it's helpful to anyone that you know or your leaders or whatever, send that to them. It's just an idea. Send them the webinar if you think it would be helpful to them. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you all. Okay.
Great. I said thank you for your time.
Oh, you're so
Yes.
welcome. Thank you. Thank you for your insights. We can learn together. We can do more together than we can alone. So just remember that. And you're never alone. You're never alone. We're all here together. So awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great.
Have a wonderful
Thanks, everyone.
afternoon.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.